The rehabilitation wing was quieter than the rest of the hospital, as if even sound knew it was unwelcome there. Machines hummed softly, wheels rolled occasionally in distant corridors, but inside room 417, time felt frozen. Emily Carter lay in her specialized bed, eyes fixed on nothing in particular, her body unmoving, her spirit heavier than the medical charts at the foot of the bed. Once, she had been unstoppable, an athlete, a scholar, a leader. Now after the accident she was a headline reduced to a diagnosis, permanent paralysis from the chest down. Hope had visited her often in the early weeks. Then it stopped coming. Her father, Jonathan Carter, sat beside her every evening. As CEO of a multinational corporation, he was used to solving problems no one else could touch. Governments listened to him. Investors waited on his words. But here, in this room, his power dissolved. He had bought the best treatments, flown in specialists, funded research wings in her name. None of it had brought her back. The doctors' voices had grown careful, their optimism quieter each day. Jonathan watched his daughter fade inward, retreating to a place he couldn't reach, and it terrified him more than losing everything he owned. That night, the door opened softly. A man stepped inside pushing a mop bucket, his movements slow, respectful. His name was Michael Reyes, a single dad working nights so he could be home during the day for his son. Life had narrowed for him years ago after his wife died suddenly, leaving him alone with a frightened 6-year-old boy and medical bills that never seemed to shrink. Michael cleaned hospitals because the hours fit his life, and because being here ironically made him feel closer to the day his world broke apart. He worked quietly, eyes trained to notice spills and scuff marks, not people. But when he glanced at Emily, something in her expression stopped him. It wasn't sadness. It was resignation. The kind that settles in after you've already cried every tear you had. Michael stood there longer than he should have, memories tightening his chest. He remembered his son lying in a bed like this once, after an accident doctors said would leave lasting damage. He remembered the silence, the waiting, the fear disguised as acceptance. Without planning to, Michael spoke, barely above a whisper. "I'll help her." Jonathan looked up sharply, irritation flashing instantly. "What did you say?" Michael stiffened, realizing he had crossed a line no one invited him to cross. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to interrupt. I didn't ask for commentary." Jonathan snapped, standing. Years of command hardened his voice. "Please do your job." Emily turned her head slowly. The movement was small, but deliberate. "Let him talk," she said, her voice flat but firm. Jonathan froze. She hadn't spoken more than a few words. At a time in days, Michael swallowed. "I didn't mean to be disrespectful," he said, meeting her eyes. "I just recognize that look. When someone's already decided nothing will change." Emily studied him. "And what makes you think you can help me?" she asked. Not angrily, tiredly. "Because I've been here before," Michael replied. "Not like you, but close enough to know that when hope disappears, the body follows." Jonathan stepped between them. "You have no idea what she's been through," he said. "We've tried everything." "I believe you," Michael said quietly. "But sometimes trying everything medically still leaves someone alone mentally." Emily's eyes filled, but she didn't look away. "Everyone keeps telling me to be patient," she said. "To be strong. Like I haven't already failed at both." Michael shook his head gently. "Strength isn't pretending you're okay," he said. "It's choosing to try again when you're exhausted. And patience doesn't mean waiting for miracles. It means allowing small things to matter." Jonathan wanted to stop the conversation. He didn't like how exposed it made his daughter or himself. Yet something in Michael's voice carried a truth that no specialist had offered. "My son couldn't walk once," Michael continued softly. "Doctors gave timelines, some optimistic, some honest. What they didn't give was hope when progress stalled. So we made our own, 1 finger, 1 toe, 1 second longer than yesterday." Emily's breath hitched. "And if nothing moves?" She asked. What if my body never listens again? Then the fight still belongs to you, Michael said. Not the accident. The words landed hard. Emily turned away, tears finally breaking free. Jonathan reached for her hand, his own eyes burning. Michael stepped back, suddenly aware he'd said too much. He finished the room in silence and left, certain he'd crossed a boundary he couldn't uncross. The next afternoon, a nurse stopped Michael in the hallway. Room 417 asked for you, she said. Jonathan stood when Michael entered. Less anger in his face now, more uncertainty. Emily wants to talk to you, he said. I don't understand why, but I won't stop it. Michael sat where he was told. Emily looked at him differently now, not as a patient looks at staff, but as one human looks at another. You don't talk to me like I'm broken, she said. Michael nodded. Broken isn't permanent, he replied. It's a condition, not an identity. From that day on, Michael came during his shifts not as a therapist, not as a savior, but as someone who stayed. He talked about failure honestly. About days when his son threw toys in rage, when therapy sessions ended in tears. He taught Emily how to set goals so small they couldn't intimidate her. He reminded her that effort mattered even when outcomes didn't show immediately. Weeks passed, then months. Emily began to engage again. First emotionally, then mentally. Her will returned before her movement did. But when a finger finally twitched, the room held its breath. Doctors called it promising. Jonathan called it a miracle. Michael called it proof. One evening, Jonathan pulled Michael aside. Why are you doing this? He asked. You owe us nothing. Michael thought of his son asleep at home. Because someone once stayed for us, he said. And I promised myself I would do the same whenever I could. A year later, Emily stood with assistants, trembling but smiling through tears. Jonathan wept openly, no longer caring who saw. He offered Michael a position, resources, funding, a platform to help others who had lost hope. Michael accepted not for the title, but for the chance to whisper the same words to someone else one day. And Emily would later say that the moment her life changed wasn't when her body moved again, but when a tired man with nothing to gain leaned close and reminded her that hope doesn't need permission to return. Please like, share and subscribe. Lover Aski, we share stories the world need to feel again.